Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion, your host, the Hut, and we are back here, extremely irritated, extremely disappointed, and quite frankly, another embarrassing performance by our New York Mets. But before we get into this, I know you're all waiting to hear from what I have to say about this. Before we get to that, please subscribe to the Baseball Hut and like the video and leave comments in the comments section. So I have a lot of sort of thoughts. Been thinking a lot about Francisco Lindor, and but this is before I get into that. Again, the Met pitching is terrible. That is a reflection on the general manager, Billy Epler. He did absolutely nothing to really improve this pitching staff in terms of just their depth, their organizational depth. And he re-signed Edwin Diaz. Verlander took over for DeGrom. He made the deal with Quintana. Now Quintana will be coming back, I would think, in the next few weeks. I would hope that when he comes in, that they ship Carrasco out of here, because I'm tired of seeing him pitching, and that's the way the cookie crumbles. He's got to go. He's given up a lot of home runs. That's kind of been his MO since he's been here with the Mets. Always giving up home runs, always giving up early runs. I saw something interesting about the Mets, since it was right at the end of the game, when the game ended. That Gary Cohen, the Mets announcer, said that the Mets have lost 10 games where they scored 6 runs or more. That is an indictment of the pitching. Billy Epler had a reputation with the Angels of not having good pitching staffs there in California. And he's carried that here with the Mets. Like I said, there's no organizational pitching. And that when you don't have that depth, it's going to kill you. And I would mention then the Darren Ruff trade. He traded 3 pitchers for Darren Ruff, including J.D. Davis last year. And of course he traded Colin Holderman for the immortal Daniel Vogelback. I know Vogelback, he hit a ball, he hit it on the track today, but he took 3 balls right down the middle and his at bat in the 9th inning. How can you first of all, what is the modus operandi, which is another word for MO, for a pinch hitter? First ball, fastball hitter. Okay, there's only one pinch hitter I can remember all these years that took a lot of pitches and took walks. That's Matt Franco. But most pinch hitters are extremely aggressive. Daniel Vogelback, the guy is like a statue. And he was flailing all over the place against Hicks. He made contact. Some contact. He made it out. And he didn't get a hit yesterday, late in the game. No surprise there. You can't trust him. Guy hits a home run when the Mets are up 5-1, or if they were down 5-1. But this pitching has been a mess since the beginning of the season. And that is an indictment of the general manager. Again, I'll say this again. I don't trust him to make any kind of trades when it comes to him. I have my concerns about him long term. I would think that if they do make this move in the offseason, bringing in David Stearns, that he will, and I know that they're very good friends, you would think that Stearns will try to bring in some people that are his people in here. Again, I have my concerns about the Met front office because some of the Wilpon people are still here. Okay? And the Wilpons are still here. People forget that. They're still around. They don't have any control of the team anymore. But they're still around. And so are their people. So I just put that on the side. That's a small thing, but I've mentioned that. But if Stearns comes in here, he's going to want his own manager. He's going to want his own general manager at some point, and bring in his own people. I mean, it just makes sense, right? I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with him, but that's something to talk about later on. But now they scored a lot of runs today. Again, like they said, Gary said at the end of the game, they've had 10 games where they scored 6 runs and they lost. That's a lot. And that tells you how bad the pitching is. The bullpen stinks. The starters are even worse. There's no middle relief to speak of. Buck brought in John Curtis, boom, hit a home run. Yeah, he gave up a home run. It is impossible to win games like that. It's impossible to be any good. And now the Mets are 12.5 games behind the Braves. Look how much ground they've lost. They can't win the division now. There's no way they can win this division in my estimation. Based on the way they've played, based on the way they've looked, the way they carry themselves on the field. They don't. There's one player on that team that has any kind of fight, and that's Tommy Pham. He's the only guy that puts up a fight. With every at bat is a war. And with the rest of this group, it just isn't. Now, I did a video on Francisco Lindor just to sort of give you some idea that might shock you a little bit. Again, I've said this. I'm not a big fan of his. I know he hit a home run today's game. God bless him. He's a father again. Happy Father's Day to him, everyone else that's a father today. And God bless his children. But I'm going to point out things. Some people might like it. Some people might not like it. It's important to not only be a guy that plays every day and is there every day and wants to play even when they're hurt, but you have to deliver. That's part of the whole thing of leadership, is that when you're down in the game, you know a certain player is going to come in and come through in a big spot. Can anyone name one big moment in the 3 seasons that Francisco Lindor has been with the Mets where he said that that's the big moment that he had? That's a moment with this guy. He came through as a leader on the field. The Mets won a game because he had a big hit late in the game. You can't think of anything. I can't. I've been thinking about it. I can't think of anything. I just mentioned this thing against the Guardians a couple weeks ago, but I'm talking about a big game. I mean, really big game. Can anyone name it? Maybe people can write in the comments. Maybe you can jog my memory. So that's important. It's not just about playing every day, showing up for work. You have to come through when the chips are down, when everybody else has sort of moved on and have given up. You got to be a guy that's going to come in and say, look, not only am I going to tell you, let's get it going. I want to get a big hit, and you're going to follow me. He hasn't done that. And as Met fans, we've seen this. We've seen players that come along, and they do this. They carry the team. Mike Piazza did it. Keith Hernandez, Gary Carter. Those guys said, just by the way they carried themselves, or didn't say anything. Now, Piazza was very quiet, but Piazza always came up big and late in the game. Same thing with Keith Hernandez and Kid. But that guy doesn't. And a lot of these guys don't. Tommy Pham does. I trust him late in the game. And I know Nimmo's been scuffling a little bit. I trust him too. And Pete to a certain degree. But Lindor, I don't. Unfortunately. That's part of this sort of idea of leadership. It's not just about, like I said, let's get it going, guys, let's go. It's also about being a tough out late in the game. And he's just not that. He strikes out way too much. And again, they've sort of had him batting third still, bat him fifth, bat Pete third at some point, and maybe bat Pham cleanup. But, Pham's getting big hits. He's driving the ball hard. He's hitting the ball hard. Even his outs are hard hit balls. But this is a team that has no leadership. Now, I'm going to mention this. I did this, like I said, let me go back. I did this video on the Baseball Hut 2, discussing Francisco Lindor not having given Jeff McNeil this card that he promised him if he won the batting title last year. Now, some people said, well, that has nothing to do with why the Mets are in fourth place. No. But it's important amongst men that you keep your word. He promised McNeil that he would get him a car, jokingly or not, that he would give him a car for winning the batting title. He's not done that. He didn't do that in spring training. He has yet to do that. That is a big problem. Now, we know that they've had issues in the past. And so, to me, that's a part of being a stand-up guy. It's part of being like, a guy that is going to do the right thing. And he's not done the right thing yet by McNeil. Now, I'm not going to get into these other things. I think it might be just a little too much. But this thing, I don't want to get into it. If you follow me on Twitter, you probably saw it. That's not that important for this. But I'm going to suggest and based upon this sort of thumbs down from 2 years ago, Lindor is a very immature player. He's a guy that really can't handle the criticism, not from so much the media, but from us as fans. And that lack of leadership has shown itself. A few weeks ago, Jason Kipnis, a former teammate of his, said that he had no leadership when he played with them. And it took Lindor's wife to go after Kipnis to get him to back down on Twitter. I don't know if you knew that. I hadn't mentioned it. There is nothing worse. Let me tell you, if you're a man or even if you're a kid, there's two things you never want to have happen. If you're having an issue with somebody, the worst thing that can happen is either when you're a kid and your mother stands up for you, sticks up for you with another kid, or if you're having a kind of a kerfluffle with another man, the worst thing that could happen is your wife or your girlfriend come out and defend you. There is nothing worse than that because it makes you look weak. And the fact that Lindor let her do that shows me how weak he is behind the scenes. As a player, he's a tough guy. He'll get on the field if he has a broken finger. But there's a real weakness here. And you cannot have this guy with this kind of money, making $340 million, going to be here another 8 years. So I'm going to make a suggestion. It's not for now. And it's probably more for later on after the offseason. The Mets should consider trading him. Now you can say, how can they move him? Who's going to want him? Aha, I have a team. I have a team that would want him. Okay? And a team that... Now, the only problem is you move him, you got to find a shortstop. That's the only problem. And if you want to bring in Shohei Ohtani, you're going to have Shohei Ohtani and Lindor as these big players that have the big contracts. And you got Pete, that's going to be a free agent after next season. I don't know if you want to do that. And since we've seen Lindor, how weak he is as a player, in terms of as a leader, and again, his numbers are in decline as an offensive player, and which is very odd because he's in the middle of his prime. He should be putting up the big numbers. Why isn't he putting up big numbers? Why is he striking out like crazy? I can't answer that. So I'm going to give you a team in this video, and you let me know. I think this team is a perfect team for him. It's a perfect situation. There's not the kind of stress that he'd be dealing with, because he's very stressed. He's stressed out here, folks. He's stressed out. He's stressed out being a New York Met. I told you, it's not easy being green, and it's not easy being a Met. He's stressed out with being with the Mets. I'm going to suggest that the Mets, in the offseason, trade him to the San Francisco Giants. The Giants have the money to spend. They've been trying to get a big player for the last 4 or 5 years. They haven't been able to get. They failed on getting Bryce Harper. They failed on getting Aaron Judge. They had this deal worked out with Carlos Correa that blew up in their face. This deal, the money that would be on that deal with Lindor would be a little bit less than what they would have paid for Correa. And the one thing that's good about Lindor, he's durable. So he goes there. They know he's not going to get hurt. He didn't have any injury history that's going to prevent him from being good physically. Just basically, in good shape physically over the next 4 or 5 years. That's not going to be a problem. So that's a team to watch out for, because I think that's a perfect fit. The Mets, the Giants do have some talent. I've been kind of going through it. They'd have to give up probably their best prospect, which is a young left-handed starter. I forgot his name. I didn't write it down. But they have a young left-handed starter. They have some shortstop, third baseman that the Mets could look at. And maybe they bring in a major leaguer off the roster, off the Giants roster. It's just a suggestion, not for now, not for August 1st, but for later on this year in the offseason. Now, the Mets are now 12.5 games behind the Braves. Are they going to be buyers or are they going to be sellers at the trade deadline? That is the question now. To me, that's the question. We know about the third wild card spot. Makes it more interesting to make deals. But we saw last year with Epler as a general manager, he had a disastrous trading deadline. He traded too many young players for guys that were role players. And are they going to be buyers? Are they going to be sellers? Right now, they should sell. Trade Pham, Trade Canna. Get rid of Vogel, back the hell out of here. Trade Robertson. Maybe move Ottavino if some team is willing to pay him for next year. It's just a thought. But that's how I think when I see my club. And this club has a big problem. This team needs to get tougher. It needs to get younger. This team is too old. And when you have a team that's older and doesn't have the kind of lead, and you can't get this leadership from a pitcher. Okay? You need leadership from an everyday player. And I've been saying this for the last few weeks. Who is the leader on the Mets? I can't tell you who it is. Is it Tommy Pham? It might be Tommy Pham for all we know. Birds are telling me to shut up. They might tell me, shut up. Anyway. So, you let me know what you think about this video. This sort of trade Lindor in the offseason. I don't think, right now, I will plant the seeds for it. Okay? And I would mention this. This is not the first time Buck Showalter has been a manager, and he had a big shortstop, and they traded the big shortstop. The Texas Rangers had Alex Rodriguez, and Buck was the manager, and after the first year, booted out of Texas. Went to the Yankees. And just keep that in mind. I never say never. And I would, and also, how do you justify having this guy on your team when his numbers are going and the team hasn't played well? And the leadership qualities are not what you want it to be. Well, you let me know what you think about this video. And just think, folks, just think. They played the Astros this week. They play the Astros. They could lose another 3 games. And then they play the hot Phillies. Think about that. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to the Baseball Hut. Thank you for watching. And I'll see you later.